Hey, you guys are watching Burn Up.
Welcome back to the worst channel on all of YouTube. I'm DukeGames420 and today we're going to be taking a look at the Figuarts Trunks from 2012. For the third time, we are going to be taking a look at this figure. This figure was released May 2012 at a retail price of around $60. For that era, there was definitely a steep price, but is he worth that price? You're about to find out, asshole.
Fire! This man is black!
This is a cartoon!
The box is standard fare for Figuarts figure from this era. Got very light blue background with purple dot matrix art of Trunks on it. Definitely doesn't look too great. Bright yellow text with Trunks' name. Got the Silver Toei sticker, Bandai Tamashii Nations, Dragon Ball Z sticker, and Snake's Den sticker, as well as a clear window that shows Trunks, Figuarts Trunks, picture of Trunks, product made a photo in Japanese, bunch of blurbs and a bio. If you want to read any of this, go ahead and pause it because I'm not going to do it for you. Got the Japanese text that absolutely hints at Android 15. Picture of Trunks running down the side, continuing from the front. S.H.Figuarts Trunks, his name in Japanese, Burning Attack in Comic Sans on the top, as well as a bluefin sticker and a bunch of Japanese crap nobody cares about on the bottom. But with that out of the way, let's get Trunks out of his box for the third time now.
Hope you're in the mood for 72 virgin. I don't mean dudes that get your computer work.
So here Trunks is out of the box. Not much else to say. Let's just move on with the comparisons. Here he is next to Base Goku from 2014 and Clone Goku from 2021. Cooler and perfect cell. Lastly, SDCC 2012 Gohan and Android 17. Now we have all this shit out of the way. Let's take a look at Trunks' paint and sculpt.
You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth! Hey, you guys are watching Burn Up.
For the paint and sculpt, I think Tamashii did a really nice job as far as this is concerned. The jacket is a very nice and deep blue with a lot of detail all throughout. For the stitches, the shading effect is pretty nice. Capsule Corp logo is printed pretty clean for the most part. There's a hole on his back. You'll find out what that's for in a moment. Overall, I think the jacket is detailed pretty well. And the real issue is that buttons aren't painted, but that is a very minor nitpick. Flesh tone they went with is pretty nice. There's some shading all throughout, and his belt also has the same shading effect, albeit a lot sloppier. You can see where the red doesn't quite line up and where the black is bleeding into the silver. Pretty rough paint job, but it doesn't look too bad when you look at him in person. Pants are very nicely sculpted and have a lot of this sort of white highlighting effect all throughout. It looks pretty good. Boots have a different finish to everything else on him. They're a much glossier plastic compared to everything else, and they are not painted particularly well. There's a lot of paint shipping off on my copy's boots. I think he was like this out of the box though, so that's not amazing. Yeah, overall, aside from some sloppiness here and there and the fact that his pupils weren't actually painted by default, they definitely did a pretty good job with Trunks. So, that out of the way, let's move into his accessories. As you can see, Trunks has quite a few accessories, and I'm not going to waste your time by going through all of them individually, so I'm just going to say they all look nice. They have the same shading effect as everything else on the figure, so there's that. You get 3 extra base form faces: stern, gritted teeth, side glance, and yelling, as well as all 4 of his faces in Super Saiyan: stern, gritted teeth, yelling, and smirking. gripping, although in base form it seems to be more of a happy smile than a smirk. In addition to the fists you have on him by default, you get martial arts stance, karate chop, sword gripping, relaxed open palm ki blast, as well as a thumbs up and additional gripping hand for his right arm, as well as 2 swords, one for him to hold and one to put into his sheath, which I will warn you about. The peg on the sheath that goes into his back is prone to snapping off. I would not recommend sticking it in his back at all. I would actually recommend you just rest the peg on his shoulder and sort of leave it float on his back, as opposed to actually pegging it in, because then you're not going to run the risk of potentially breaking the figure. But anyways, I think that about covers everything that needs to be covered here. Let's move on to his articulation.
Don't fucking run away from me! I'll end you!
Articulation is perhaps the weakest point on this entire figure. The head doesn't really go side to side all that much. It's about that far up and that far down. You don't have a neck joint, so it can't do any tilts or anything like that. Ab crunch is pretty decent going forward, not much. Going back, you get a pretty decent range. Full 360 out of the shoulder on a ball hinge. It's pretty squeaky on this side. Go up about that far. Can't really cross his chest all that much. Because of the ball hinge design, the shoulder is your bicep swivel. Double joint at the elbow, and you get a weird mushroom tip thing which pivots and swivels, but you don't get any real side to side out of it. Legs can kick that far forward, that far back, and that far out to the side. You get a double joint at the knee, thigh swivel, as well as an ankle rocker that goes that far in, that far out, that far up, and that far down, as well as a pretty useless toe hinge because of the way it was engineered. But I suppose that about does it for trunks. So let's move on to my final thoughts on this figure.
You, Spy, you are amazing with
And wrapping up this review on trunks, what do I think of this figure at the end of the day after my 3rd review of this figure? I still think he holds up. I wouldn't say he's perfect by any means necessary. Surprise, surprise, none of these things are. As far as this figure goes overall, I think it's pretty good for 2012 standards. The articulation isn't the best, and the sheath definitely will pose a problem. Fun fact, the sheath that's on him right now is from one of my 3 premium color trunkses, which broke off, and I'm currently holding it together with tape and sketchbook paper. Overall, the aesthetics on this figure are really nice, and if you can get around his eyes not being painted in base form, looks really nice. But if you can't stand his eyes being painted in the weird way they are, where the line for the pupil is detailed but not actually painted, you can just take a Uniball ink pen like what I did and fill that shit in yourself. It was tricky to do, but definitely helps the figure look a little less weird. Or you can just leave him as he was by default. Either way, I would recommend getting this figure if you can find him at a reasonable price, if for nothing else but the fact that he looks really nice and has a shit ton of accessories. So that's about it for this one. This has been Dibber Games 420, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.